That's a good signal for us to move forward. Good morning. My name is Mo Barboza. I'll be serving as facilitator for today's meeting. We'll get to introductions in a little bit. For now, I want you to skip the who's in the room. We'll be doing that in just a bit, but I did want to mention some of the kind of rules of the space and house rules for us. If you can, please turn on your cameras. It's encouraged but not required. Again, it helps to humanize the space. We'll ask you to stay on mute when you're not speaking, and that just cuts down the background noise. And please use the chat to make comments, or if you have any questions, it allows us to answer things out loud for everyone when it's necessary, but also answer things directly to the person asking when it makes more sense to do that. Those of you who may not be familiar with using Zoom, which I'm sure there's still a couple folks who haven't been on Zoom like every day, the bottom left-hand corner of the screen is the most important part. It has in there your controls for your sound, so muting and unmuting yourself, and the video. And about in the bottom middle is the chat if you need to put something in the chat or you want to send a message. There. We'll also be doing breakout rooms a little bit later, which we'll give some explanation to at that point. So why don't we go ahead and move forward here. So just to make sure that we are thinking about who is in the room, and also thinking a little bit about how we interact with one another. Want you to think about whether you are a 1, a 2, or a 3. A 1 is someone who interacts with children and families every day. You are actively engaged with directly serving children and families. A 2 is someone who interacts with children and families occasionally. So it's not the main role that you play, but you are working directly with children and families. You might be supervising a program or have some other role within an organization that serves children and families. And then 3 is someone who doesn't regularly interact with children and families, but has a vested interest. And there are many of us who are working to support the field and working directly to support children and families, but we don't interact with them daily. So really thinking about which of these you are, and asking folks to think about which number they are, because we will be asking people to speak from that space. We want to elevate the voices of those who are working directly with children and families, because often their voices are not part of these kinds of conversations. So you may hear us ask for, can we have some comments from some 1s, and then 2s and 3s, all right? And again, this is really so that we can create a space where we balance the voices of the folks who are directly doing the work with those who are doing it indirectly and often have a little bit more opportunity to have their voices be a part of the process. Any questions on that before we move forward? Feel free to put the question in the chat, or if you have a question, feel free to come off mic. All right. I also want to mention step up and step back. If you notice that you've been saying a lot, this might be an opportunity to maybe take a step back and create space for others to bring their voices and their expertise into the space. And if you notice that you haven't really made a comment the whole session, that's an opportunity and an invitation for you to step up. Your voice and experience, insight, perspective is really important to the process. We won't be in the full group the whole time. We'll have some small group time. So if you're someone who'd be more comfortable speaking in a small group, please feel free to do so there. From time to time, I will try to pull a few folks to share what their answers were to a question or so, and you can always pass, but I'm hoping that you'll bring your voice forward. All right, if there aren't any other questions, I'm going to ask us to do a quick round of introduction. So if we can get rid of the slide for a sec. Wonderful. So I can see a lot of smiling faces. I'm going to ask you to use the chat. And in the chat, I would like you to put your name, your preferred pronouns, your organization, if that's applicable, and answer this one question. What is your favorite place in Massachusetts to spend time alone? Your favorite place in Massachusetts to spend time alone, and in your house does not count. All right, in your house does not count. So your favorite place in Massachusetts to spend time alone. And I'll ask folks to put that in the chat, and we'll pull a few folks as they come with some interesting answers. Thank you. Someone put Rockport, wonderful. The Navy Yard, wonderful. Wingershire Beach, wonderful. Someone said the Cape, anywhere specific. I see Cranes Beach has pulled up a couple times. Castle Island, I'm, a Sully's fan myself, so hear you on that one. For those of you who may be unfamiliar, Sully's is like a hot dog and French fry place at the beginning of Castle Island. So good. The wildlife, yeah, Walden Pond, wonderful. All right. Bedford Reformatory Trail. All right. I'm not sure who said that, but I would love to hear from who said Bedford Reformatory Trail. It's like Haley. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and where it is?
Sure. It's a trail that goes from Bedford up to Concord. So it's right at the end of the Minuteman Trail. So that long bike path that ends in Bedford. And so then it's a little more, it's like a dirt trail.
All right. Is it bikeable, or is this like a strictly walking kind of place?
No, it's bikeable. You might need a little, like some good tires, but it's not a lot of, it's not like a lot of routes or anything. So yeah, no, you could definitely bike it.
All right, good stuff. Tammy, tell us about Cheshire Lake. Really, I just want to know. Go ahead.
It's a paved bike trail. It runs from, they just extended it into Pittsfield, runs all the way up to Adams. I happen to like the extension of it and Cheshire Lake because I think it's the prettiest area.
All right. Really importantly, is there a cat involved?
A cat?
Yeah.
Not that I know of.
No Cheshire cat. Okay. All right.
No,
just wanted to make
no.
sure.
Not that I've seen, but he is invisible, so who knows?
All right. Could be. Let's give like another 30 seconds. See, again, we're asking folks to put their name, organization, and place in Massachusetts that they like to go spend time alone. And again, inside your home does not count. Amaris, where is the Dudley White bike path?
Hi, it's along the Charles. So it goes from like East Cambridge to pretty far out in like past Watertown. I haven't actually gone the whole way, but I know it goes far.
All right. Did not know that had a name. Awesome. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Well, thank you all for sharing. And those of you who are looking for an interesting place to spend a little bit of time, maybe this weekend, you might take a look at this list and pick a place to go, maybe a place you haven't been to before. And I love, Diane, the bookstore is one of my favorite places also. The few that are left, if I can editorialize. So thank you all. At this point, I'm going to pass it over to Amy O'Leary to do our official welcome. Amy.
Thanks so much, Mo, and good morning to everyone. We are so thrilled to be here today. As many of you know, Strategies for Children has been around since 2000. We were founded by child advocate Margaret Blood, and originally founded and funded to work on high quality universal access to preschool for all children in Massachusetts. And our mission has stayed the same around children, but what we have been advocating and fighting for has grown and expanded over the years. We spent some time thinking about third grade reading proficiency, thinking about this birth to 8 agenda. And now as we think about in our 20-year history, this idea of convening people has always been part of who we are. Through the pandemic, we learned so much from the work that we did from our 9:30 call to our speakers bureau, to our advocacy network, to just the way that we were able to think about what it means to be an advocate. And to say that the work through the pandemic has dramatically changed the way that we think about our work at Strategies is not an understatement. We have been thinking about how we are representing and how we are empowering and how we are really facilitating conversations from people who are doing work every day with children and families to policymakers and other decision makers. And sometimes we know that that power balance can be unequal. And as we worked on a strategic plan last year, one of the items that came up was really how can we think about using this convening opportunity, bringing people together on a big vision for young children and families. And so last year, there was so much happening. So even though a strategic plan timeline said we should have done it last year, we knew it was smart to wait and think about undertaking this work this fall. The early childhood agenda is really about bringing all of these voices together. And as we just did that opening exercise, making sure that the ones are informing the work and the priorities that we should be thinking about over the next, certainly legislative session and beyond. You'll hear more about today about how we thought about organizing the work. The one thing I want to say that has been part of our history is this continuous improvement and feedback loop. As we have rolled out even this beginning conversations of this work, we have received so much feedback, which we are grateful for. We are sometimes making real-time changes and other times making more thoughtful, what does this look like when we go forward and how can we best incorporate what we're hearing from people? So we want to keep that spirit going. We also want to think about what is already happening. We saw so many groups come together last year, whether it was the Common Start Coalition, whether it was rallying around the state budget, whether it was joining the 9:30 call and hearing the first year legislators tell their story about why they're running for office and what they hope to do as elected. And we want to take that spirit and bring it to this work. As the convener, we are so thrilled to be working with Mo Barboza, who is one of the best facilitators I have ever worked with. He has done incredible work in Boston. He understands the issues, but he's also able to bring a fresh perspective and a way of tying these things together. So we're thrilled to work with him, but we know that the work is really going to be done by the people in the work groups and really negotiating, prioritizing, and just thinking about what it's going to take to really get over this hill and deliver on the promise that we have for young children and families. One thing that's a little bit different that I just would ask you to keep in the front of your mind is while early education and care is certainly a cornerstone of this work, this is a much broader agenda. So I want folks to really hold us accountable to that, hold each other accountable to that, because sometimes I think it's easy to go back to where we've been or where we feel most comfortable. We really want to expand this work and have this cross-sector alignment and bridge building so that we can have better policies at the end for children and families. So we are so thrilled to have you. We are recording everything. You'll hear about all the ways that you can be engaged and then engage other folks in this work. So thank you for joining us this morning. And I am so thrilled to be starting this with everybody.
Thank you, Amy. Just to make sure that we are all on the same page, I would love if folks who came to the open house, if you could use the little emoji reaction button and just give me a thumbs up so we get a sense of who came to the open house. And if you're struggling to figure out where that emoji button is, you can just do the old style, the analog thumbs up also. I'm a big fan of that too. Okay, great. All right, so it looks like a smattering of thumbs, maybe somewhere near 30 to 40%. Amy, could I just ask you to say a little bit more about the structure of what we're doing? Because you mentioned the working groups and not everyone knows exactly what you're talking about.
Sure, we will, today we've used a lot of terminology around homes. So today are right now all in our homeroom. So that we were all together joining, and let's think of positive memories of homeroom, which there may be few and far between. But we are going to meet all together today. We'll have opportunities for breakouts. We'll hear more later about the 5 areas of work that will have working groups, so that each person will sign up for a working group. Organizations can have multiple people join in, and that is where the work will happen around talking about the issues, how we're going to prioritize them, what's really happening in programs and family childcare programs and health clinics across the state. And then we'll learn more about the structure, about decision making, and how we're going to all come together to develop this 3 to 5 page agenda that we will, release in January. And we'll talk more about what that looks like. And I think I just want to keep stressing, because we've heard feedback about even the kickoff scheduled for 10 a.m. And we know that many people who are working directly with children cannot be here. We have many tools of engagement. So just keep that in the front of your mind. And we'll talk more about the structure as we go through today.
All right, thank you, Amy. Just want to make sure we did a little bit of level setting for folks who may not have been a part of the open houses last week. Want to just welcome folks who didn't get a chance to put in the chat their name, their organization, their preferred pronoun in one place in Massachusetts that they would like to spend some time alone in. So you can go ahead and put that in the chat if you haven't had a chance to. Those of you who came in after we did our introductions, thank you. Could we go to the next slide? Just a little information about the organization, if you can go back there. And I just want to point out a really important word here is this childhood ecosystem in Massachusetts, that whether you are working as a 1 really directly, as a 2 for a little bit more detached, and as a 3 more peripherally, you're part of this one ecosystem that works together to provide children and families quality services and childcare. So we really want to be thinking about how we act together as an ecosystem proactively, as well as when we need to react. So thank you all those who have come in after, and for putting your information in the chat. We are going to move to our first activity. I'm going to bring in Marissa to do a quick explanation of how to use the activity link, but we're going to be answering some questions, and we wanted to get some info from you pretty early on. One of the questions is, this is a large group, and people have had different experiences when working with large groups. So what has worked well in the past when you've met with large groups? What would you change? What's something new that you want to try? And what questions do you have? And we're going to ask you to do that in this activity link. So I'm going to pass it over to Marissa, who is going to get us there.
Thanks, Mo. So as Amy mentioned earlier, Strategies for Children is really committed to continuous improvement throughout this process. And this is sort of our first step in making that a reality for us all. So Plus Delta is something that we at Strategies have used a number of times. And the activity is really meant to provide a simple method for us all to engage in reflection as an approach to continuous improvement. So thinking about how this early childhood agenda is going to be a large group convening. And as Mo mentioned, we've all had experiences working in large groups before in various capacities, and we want to make sure that this is sort of the best experience possible for everyone. So take a moment to reflect on your experiences in the past before filling out the activity link. But once we are in the activity, we'll have sort of 4 different questions talking about what's worked well, what hasn't worked well, what would you consider improving, what are some new things related to working as a large group that you're interested in trying, and then what questions do you still have about the process in the early childhood agenda, most of which we'll answer today, I hope, later on in the slides. So to get into the activity, there's 3 different pathways. So first is you can just click on the link that we've posted in the chat. And I'll make sure to post that one again for anyone who's joining now. The second is if you want to use it on your phone, you can take a picture of that QR code there, and the website will pop up as a link on your phone as well. And then the final is you can go to joingroupmaps.com and then enter in that, what is that, 9-digit code right there. So 6BC314649. And I will go ahead and post the link in the chat one more time for everyone. Here it is. All right. And I know Jenna might give it another second or two just to let everyone see the QR code for those who are joining us right now, and then we'll pop over to the activity so we can see. And I'm seeing that we have a lot of folks are joining. We have about 70 that are in the activity right now. So I think we're good to pop over to the activity to give that visual in a second, Jenna. All right, so once you're in the activity, we have 4 different questions, and we'll move through each of them. So we're going to start focusing on what has gone well in the past, and then we'll move into the other categories. So what has gone well? What were you pleased with? What produced good outcomes when working in a large group? And then we'll be able to read some of the responses there before we move on to the next question in a couple minutes.
And Marissa, we can see that folks are doing, but with the, did you talk about the thumbs up, thumbs?
So for this activity, it's really sort of about your own experience. If you see a comment in the different categories that you agree with, feel free to use the thumbs up and thumbs down as well to kind of boost that one or re-emphasize it. And then the level of detail that you should include in your plus delta name. Tish, could you say a little bit more about that? Are you just talking about when you log into the activity?
Yes, only when logging in. So most people
Okay.
are already on, so it's fine.
No worries, no worries. Feel free to just use your first name, last name. It's mostly just to create your sort of account, and we'll use this activity format a couple times throughout the agenda setting process. So it'll allow you to sort of save your information, and you can go back and see what other information you've provided on different activities.
Marissa, can you tell folks how to see the screen as you're seeing it so that they can just look at one question?
Yes, I can. So when you first log in, you'll see all 4 categories. To zoom in on one, you click on the 3 dots that's next to what went well, or the sort of title of the category. Thanks, Jenna. And then you click on show full screen, and that'll allow you to zoom in on just one.
And if there's anyone who is not being able to get into the activity link, or that's not working for you, or your devices are rebelling against you, as mine often do, and you'd like to answer the question, you can do that in the chat and we'll add it to the board.
Seeing one of these pros is that Mo is the facilitator, which I would agree with. Someone has enjoyed group activities before when Mo is facilitating.
Nice. I did pay for that comment, so.
Can read through a few of these while we're giving folks a few more minutes. Yeah, Mo is a rock star. Transparency in decision making. Follow up. Kind facilitation to bring forward reticent participants and set boundaries. Learning activities required in advance to create a common base of understanding. A very focused and tight agenda. Breakout rooms, variety of ways to give input, clear agenda and instructions. Well planned in advance, reflection activities, clear goals, broken down, strong facilitation. Interactive tools. Activities that allow for full participation and thought-provoking questions. All right, we have some great responses here. So if you're still working on that first prompt, feel free to continue adding questions. We're just going to start showing the second one now so that we can keep moving through this process. So the second prompt is about what hasn't worked out as well in the past. So what areas do you see for improvement when working in a large group, and how can we incorporate that into planning for the agenda? balance of content and interaction from participants, not letting a few people dominate the conversation, avoiding non-critical repetitions of material from previous sessions, incorporating family voice. I think that's family voice, but also thinking about sort of those ones in that structure, making sure that the people who are closest to the work and interacting with children and families have a voice in the process. Time needs to be considered for getting work done. Start on time, end on time. Complicated ways to get access to asynchronous communications like Slack. That's helpful. We'll talk a little bit more later today about how we're using a asynchronous communication platform. And as Amy mentioned, we've created sort of a variety or a suite of engagement opportunities. So our hope is that everyone can sort of find the method that works the best for them, whether it's coming to the working group meetings, whether it's sort of participating completely asynchronously at 5 o'clock in the morning or 10 p.m. at night using the virtual engagement opportunities, or engaging on Basecamp as well. All right, so moving on to the next question. What do we want to try? So what innovative ideas or alternative approaches would you like to try when working in a large group? Prep materials so we can jump in ready to work, use of tools such as polls, Jamboard, technology, a list of participants and contact information so we connect with someone after large group meetings. Love the parking lots idea, so just some place to always share information and to post ideas or thoughts. That's come up a couple times. Separate subgroup meetings, not in large groups, and then facilitators bring info back to the large groups, working internally to strengthen relationships, polls in Zoom. What else? Developing a charter of rights or a vision for equity of experiences. All right, so now we'll go to the final question. Or the final prompt. What questions do you still have about the early childhood agenda process? What are some of the sort of nagging questions that are still going through everyone's minds? So what information after these Zooms is going to be used and continued, or are we just talking about this information while in the working group settings, or how are you bringing this back to the community and education settings? That's a great question. We'll talk a little bit more about that one today. Beyond 1, 2, and 3, how will equity be actively centered? It's a great question. How do we get buy-in with our individual communities? How do we get other stakeholders involved? Innovations emerging at the local levels. How do we identify and learn from some of them to inform this conversation? How to effectively engage all relevant sectors of early childhood? And how will we best document the roadmap desired for structural and systems change related to the priorities that we agree upon? So these are some great questions. And what we're going to do after this is we will comb through everyone's responses, and we'll do our best to sort of combine and group ones that are similar so that it's a really condensed list. And then we'll be sure to share this out in the follow-up email so that everyone can both see the responses that this initial group has started with, and then also sort of to the point of one of the earlier questions there is how we can share this with sort of the larger early childhood community. What we'd encourage everyone to do in the sort of structure that we're hoping will work with this working group format is that all of you will sort of bring these activities, bring these conversations to your spaces and to your networks as well. So we'd encourage all of you to share this link that comes out in the follow-up email and to encourage others to provide feedback on the agenda setting process. And I will turn it back to Mo.
All right, these are live documents, so if you are continuing there, please do. If you've got a final comment, we are going to bring our attention back to our homeroom here. So if we could put the slide back on slide number 6. And I'm just going to ask, we didn't do a quick introduction of the team. If you go to the next slide, and before we do the welcome video, if we could ask our Strategies for Children friends to introduce the team. So Amy, I'll give it over to you.
Thanks so much, Mo. So let's start. Titus, Marissa, Neri, Marge, Jenna, go for it.
Hello, everyone. Titus Dostromedius, Deputy Director. Great to see you all today.
Hi, everyone. Marissa Fear. I'm the Associate Director of Research and Policy.
Hi all, excuse me. Hi all, good morning. Diagnetis Garcia, Director of Communications.
Hi, everybody. I'm Marge. Nice to be here with you all. I'm the Director of Finance and Operations.
Hi, everyone. Jenna Nguyen, Project Manager at Strategies. Good to be here.
And our current technical support for this meeting. So thank you, Jenna. Thanks, Mo.
Thank you. And I believe we're going to move to the welcome video. So I'll give it back to Marissa.
Thank you. So in a second here, Jenna is going to start to play a preview of a welcome video. So we have two previews that we wanted to share with you all today, a preview of the Early Childhood Agenda website, and then a preview of this welcome video. We love feedback. Please post it in the chat if you have any thoughts, sort of initial reactions on this. If it is helpful to sort of explaining the Early Childhood Agenda process and what we hope to do through this, and thoughts about how we can make some improvements, because this is not a final product yet. So with that, I will turn it over to Jenna, who can share a preview of the welcome video.
What would it look like if every young child and family across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts had access to high quality, affordable, accessible, culturally and linguistically responsive health and mental health care, screenings and referrals, support for parents and caregivers, comprehensive wraparound services, and childcare? And what would it look like if the early childhood system in Massachusetts provided equitable compensation and access to career advancement for the workforce, was supported by sustainable investments from both the public and private sectors, provided technical and physical infrastructure at the local and state levels, was informed by current data to drive policy decisions, and included the voices of those most impacted by early childhood issues? Healthy development in the early years provides the building blocks for all learning, behavior, and health. Every child's developmental journey is unique. Often, social determinants such as socioeconomic status, gender, race, education level, and geography have a large impact on the path a child takes and what resources their family has access to. Our early childhood system is complex and difficult to understand. Without a clear sense of families' needs and the various resources, supports, and services that exist, effective action to improve the lives of young children and their caregivers is not possible. The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted inequities and current system failings while shining an important light on the fragility of the early childhood ecosystem in Massachusetts. There is now broad, concrete awareness of how critical the early childhood sector is to our economy and to the future of Massachusetts, presenting the opportunity for systemic change. Equitable outcomes for our youngest children shouldn't be wishful thinking. We know that in order to achieve this vision, Massachusetts needs an integrated and accessible system of support for children from prenatal through age 8 and their families. We need a roadmap, an early childhood agenda. The Early Childhood Agenda is a partnership, process, and product. This partnership connects organizations, parents, advocates, businesses, educators, service providers, and government representatives that support the growth and development of our youngest children and their families in Massachusetts through public awareness, policy development, and advocacy efforts. This fall, partners like you will meet to build a consolidated early childhood agenda through a consensus-building process composed of 5 working groups: financially secure families, high-quality experiences, thriving early childhood workforce, robust system infrastructure and local partnerships, healthy beginnings. Each working group will examine challenges in the early childhood system and work to identify, coordinate, and elevate key priorities. Throughout the fall, there will be a variety of virtual and in-person engagement opportunities. 3 leadership teams, stewardship, communications, and data, will help to guide the work of the partnership and align across the working groups. The convening will produce a list of policy priorities shaped by community needs, your perspectives, and lived experiences. These priorities will identify key investments needed and cut across both policy and practice, highlighting the field's top priorities for the next 2 years. By becoming a partner of the Early Childhood Agenda, you are adding your voice to improve the lives of all children in Massachusetts. Your representation allows us to develop sensible policies because children's issues are interdependent and can't be developed effectively in silos. Together, we can build policies that put children and families first. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. African proverb.
Wonderful. I saw in the chat all the wonderful comments, both about the video and the insights that it brings. Just want to ask Marissa about how folks might be able to access that video for their enjoyment, but also to share with their partners at work and the people who are in their offices and the other folks who are not here today who should have seen it.
Thanks, Mo. So ultimately, the video will be on the Early Childhood Agenda website, so it'll be publicly available for everyone to share. And we're really hoping that it'll sort of be the introduction and the level setting for those who weren't able to attend the open house or who may not have made it for the kickoff meeting as well, so that it'll kind of get everyone on the same page and be an introduction to the Early Childhood Agenda. And in terms of providing feedback, because it isn't a final product yet, feel free to send us an email at any of our personal emails or the info@earlychildhoodagenda.org email address, which I'll put in the chat as well. I saw some really fantastic feedback in the chat, so please keep that coming. And then I will also, I know Jenna's going to pull up the Early Childhood Agenda website in a second here, and I will turn it over to Neri, who can share sort of a walkthrough of what the Early Childhood Agenda website will look like and how we're planning to build it out over the next few weeks.
Morning, once again. So we have thought long and hard about how to make sure that the Early Childhood Agenda stands on its own as a true partnership of everyone that's contributing. And so that is why, you know, we came up with a name, we came up with a logo, and then naturally we also have a website. And so what we have right now is we're still building it out through Squarespace, but soon, hopefully by the end of the day today or tomorrow, it will be open to the public as earlychildhoodagenda.org. And then the first page, the home page, is really just an overview of what the agenda is and what we're trying to do. If you go into the About Us section, it goes a little bit deeper into the problem and our solution, proposed solution. In getting involved, it lets you know the various ways to get involved, whether you are coming in for a one-time meeting or you want to stay with us for the whole duration of the working group process from now until December. If you scroll up again, Jenna, and go to events, we will post events here. So today's kickoff is listed there, and there will be information as to how to sign up for each. So week to week, this will be updated with what's coming up the following week or two, depending on what information we have available. Right now, we just have meetings for this week and next. And if you scroll down a little bit, Jenna, towards the bottom, there's an archive of events. And in there, we'll post a link to the YouTube recording of that meeting so that folks who can't make it still have access to the recording. And I believe that's it. Actually, no, there's one more button at the top, our news and media. So as we are gaining some traction, we're putting out press releases, we're getting coverage in the media, we'll post it there as well. So the website is really for all public facing information. And then internal information or discussions will be, happening within Zoom or in Basecamp. And once this goes live, or even now, if you all have feedback, we've already received a ton of feedback over email about various things, and we are actively listening and incorporating it into our messaging.
Wonderful. Thank you. If folks have any comments or questions, please put them in the chat and suggestions. Folks are serious about taking feedback. I'm going to move us forward because we need to make up a little bit of time in our agenda. It's been great to be a witness to this video and how things are moving forward. We're going to go into some small groups, and I'm going to ask us to spend 10 minutes in the small groups. I know Neri's going to make Neri or Jenna is going to make the randomized small group, so you'll be there with some folks who you may not know. So take a quick moment to say, hey, here is who I am. But we are going to ask you to use those 10 minutes to have a conversation about what brings you here today, like what brought you into the field. What is your why in doing this work? What is it about early childhood system in Massachusetts that keeps you up at night, that you keep thinking about, and what are you hoping to get most out of this experience of us working together and defining an agenda and moving toward change? All right, those are the 3 questions. I'm going to ask if we can put them in the chat, and then Jenna, if you can let us know when we are ready to go into small groups.
We are ready. I think it'll automatically put you into your breakout room. It's all randomized.
Wonderful. So once we turn that on, you'll get a little pop-up that says, your small group, join group number 13 or whatever the number is, and click on that. If you're not getting that, you can mouse over the bottom of your Zoom screen to where it says breakout room, click on that, and it should give you that little pop-up. So Jenna, if you want to hit the go button there, and some of you should be whisked away into your small group. And welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you had a good conversation in your small group. I want to do some quick highlights. So I'll ask if we could have a couple folks maybe just share their why. Is there someone who is just like, wow, that was a great why that someone in my group shared and wants to volunteer that person? I'll take that. Otherwise, I can ask for somebody also. So I'll give you a chance to volunteer. All right, so we'll have to go with like best smile. Kelly, go ahead.
I'm in a closet, so I can't be called on. This is what early learning is like. There were so many great whys, which is just those first 2,000 days are pivotal, and there's great inequity, and Massachusetts is just a phenomenal place with great minds and wonderful things happening. And if we put our minds together, we can make great progress quickly, which is what Strategies does. And so we are hopeful and committed and know that we do not have a day or a moment to waste. It has to happen. Every moment that we wait is a missed opportunity. And so our time is now.
Awesome. Thank you. Adam, what about you?
Also many great whys. I think the one that stood out to me was one of our group members who mentioned beginning this work in their capacity when their children were very young, when they were like just born and then a toddler, and then now looking 5 years ahead and kind of seeing similar and being frustrated by similar lack of action. So again, just like the sustained effort being so important, and that's inspiring to think about someone really wanting to make things different 5-10 years down the line.
Great. We did also ask, like, what's keeping you up at night in terms of thinking about early childhood in Massachusetts? And let's see if we can get a couple folks who would share on that. How about Miss Makey? What did y'all talk about?
We talked about there's a lot of things. So teachers being underpaid, there's a lot of teachers who depend on WIC and government assistance or have to have multiple jobs. So that was one aspect. And then children, the abuse that some children face in centers and teachers are also facing within the centers as well are things that definitely keep us up at night.
All right, how about Mark Riley?
Thanks, folks. Well, unfortunately, our team didn't quite get to that question. We had so much fun unpacking the first few together, but I could anticipate, based on what they were sharing, I think similarly, the compensation levels are a major problem in the workforce. But then the other piece was really the kind of lack of inaction that we've seen, where there's some momentum for sure around policy. And I think our leaders are finally starting to pay a little bit more attention to us. But I think a big sense of our group was, hopefully this group will be the final piece to really push our folks over the top and have our elected officials really listen to our field once and for all and make some significant change.
Mark, I knew I could count on you to make that bridge from what we're up late at night thinking about and what we're hopeful for. Let's take one more hope. Let's say, how about Alex Chu? Alex, are you still there?
I'm still here. One of the things that I think came up was that I'm really hopeful that even in our small groups of the first 5 minutes of today, we've already seen some linkages of folks that are thinking about breaking down silos and what it means to think holistically about wraparound services and crossing those barriers. And I think that I'm particularly hopeful for the excitement that was in our group about working towards meaningful change and setting the agenda.
Wonderful. I'm going to ask if folks have a burning hope to put it in the chat, because we're going to have to move forward in the agenda. So please, if there was something that was shared or something that's really big, please put it in the chat. And any other comments, thank you, Danubia and Aisha and some other folks have already started doing that. Going to move us forward. And we have a just overview of the early childhood agenda that just to make sure everyone is on the same page that we're going to share. So I'm going to give it back to Marissa.
Thanks, Mo. All right, Jenna, you can hop over to the next slide. So we're going to spend the next few slides talking about what the early childhood agenda is and the process that we're all going to move through over the next few months and how you can be involved in this process. So first, the early childhood agenda is a partnership that connects organizations, parents, advocates, businesses, educators, service providers, and government representatives that support the growth, development, and learning of our youngest children in Massachusetts. As Amy mentioned earlier, this is really thinking across sectors, whole child, and viewing early childhood and all of the different systems that interact within that sector. So as a process, it will really be made up of 4 different parts, which we'll go through on the next few slides, and then finally a product. So ultimately, we will have this document, this product that we can share with decision makers, with our elected officials, and to use to advocate for the components of the agenda moving forward. All right. So within the process, it's really composed of 4 different parts. So priorities, identifying as an early childhood community, what are the most urgent pressing priority issues within early childhood, identifying research questions. So thinking about what are our collective research questions and how can we make those connections with the higher education sphere and connecting that to research and getting some answers to those pressing early childhood questions. Also making the connection with data. So one of the leadership teams that we've identified is a data team, which will coordinate with the working groups and help to identify what data we have and what data we need to move forward. And then finally, action. So how can we provide tailored advice for next steps and really think about who are the lead advocates that are going to be pushing these agenda pieces forward? What's the point of engagement? Is this require engagement with the legislature? Is it engagement with our State Department? Is it engagement with philanthropy and thinking about more philanthropic dollars into the early childhood systems? And then the needed investment. So again, are we thinking about the state budget as a point of increased investment, or are we thinking about philanthropy as potentially another point of investment? And then the interaction between the state and local governance as well. So within priorities, you all may be wondering, how are we going to get from point A to point B? So point A is sort of where we are now, where we're coming together, we're creating this group in this partnership, and we need to start to identify what some of these issue areas are in order to be able to identify our priorities for early childhood. So through activities like the Plus Delta activity that we did earlier today, and using the same software, we're going to utilize the working group as sort of a first test, or like a starting point in developing what these priorities should be. So from starting from big issue areas and moving down into smaller, more focused issue areas, and then eventually identifying solutions using those tools. So similar to what we did today, where we start with the process of brainstorming, where everyone is sort of getting every idea we can think of on the table. I saw a question in the chat earlier about how out of school time fits into this agenda, and it 100% fits into the agenda. So one of the important components of this is that if it interacts with early childhood and it's something that you're working in or that you're interested in, it's a part of the conversation. So we really want all of you to bring your ideas and bring your thoughts on what we should be discussing and what are the priorities for early childhood as that first starting process, and then to share those out with each other and start to group them together, to see where each person has identified a similar priority with someone else and where we're starting to see consistencies in the responses, to group those together, and then to ultimately vote and have a process where we're elevating priorities, and we start to see which ones are rising towards the top, and there's clear consensus on that should be a priority issue area that can then go on the final agenda. The working groups are really just meant to segment the work. So you can go to the next slide, Jenna. So for the working groups, we've identified financially secure families, high quality experiences, a thriving early childhood workforce, robust system infrastructure and local partnerships, and then healthy beginnings. So all of these are meant to be ways to categorize the work. Every person can participate in every single working group, but they will be meeting at the same time. So in terms of attending a working group meeting, you'll have to pick which working group you want to attend, and we'd encourage everyone to be sort of consistent throughout this process and to attend that one meeting so that you can really be deeply engaged in the conversation. But in terms of participating, because all of the early childhood agenda processes are going to live online to supplement some of the in-person engagement. So you'll have the opportunity to participate across all 5 and to inform the agenda for each of them as well. And one of the primary purposes of this working group is really to serve as sort of the first of many circles of engagement. So if someone signs up for the mailing list, they'll receive news on progress, general updates, and opportunities to take action alongside of us. And that's where we'll share ways for anyone to inform the development of the agenda, those activities, those key questions. We'll also supplement this with separate meetings on like the 9:30 call or in-person engagement opportunities to really ensure that we have as many voices as possible contributing to the development of the agenda. The working groups are really that first circle of engagement. So anyone, an individual, an organization, or a business can participate in those working groups. And we're going to ask that working group partners attend these meetings, engage via our internal communications platform, Basecamp, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, and then support our efforts to coordinate and align the work of the early childhood agenda. So to ensure that we have all early childhood stakeholders connected and active in that development, that we're really pulling in the voices of those ones who can't be here at 10 in the morning for these meeting times. We're going to ask that working group partners help us bring these activities and conversations to your networks, to your spaces, and that we can together increase the number of voices that have a role in this process. All right, and we're going to do that through sort of sharing a variety of resources through our follow-up emails on the website, and then also creating these toolkits and facilitation guides that will enable partners, organizations who may be hosting conversations and have tables that are already actively engaging parents and families or members of the early childhood workforce, to bring those conversations to those spaces and to have continued conversations that can inform the early childhood agenda process as well. So one example of how Strategies for Children is going to be implementing that is through the 9:30 call. We're also going to be hosting evening time slots for the 9:30 call, where we can sort of bring some of these conversations that are happening during the working groups and bring the activities that we're completing during the working group to the 9:30 call to get some more engagement for those who can't necessarily come to these working group meetings. And then in terms of in-person engagement, one of the ways that we're going to be engaging through that is to really utilize the first cohort and the second cohort of the advocacy network to bring these conversations to their local communities and to host in-person meetings where we can sort of further connect with people who are outside of our sort of network, our direct network at Strategies for Children. So I'd really encourage all of the partners that are here at the working group meeting today to sort of take a look at this slide and think about what would you offer in terms of online and virtual engagement? What are the spaces that you're holding or that you're creating for members of the early childhood community, and what resources can we help provide to you so that you can carry on these conversations and can involve more voices in the development of the agenda? And same thing for in-person. What are some of the in-person spaces that you hold, and what resources can we provide to support you in bringing these conversations to those spaces? And as a preview, this is the meeting schedule for the working groups over the next few months. So starting with the welcome meeting, October 19th today. The first working group meeting will be October 25th, the second, November 10th. And then the final meeting in December with the event release in January. So we will be sharing out this meeting schedule with all of you so that you have a good sense of when the meeting times will occur and planning for the future. And then finally, wanted to share a quick preview of what the final product will look like for the early childhood agenda, or the components of the final product. So highlighting each of those sort of 4 areas of the process, the priorities, identifying what are our priorities in early childhood and how can we elevate those? What are the research questions that the early childhood community has identified? The data that aligns with those priorities. So what's the data that we have on this priority area? What's the data that we still need in order to be able to monitor progress to effectively advocate? And then finally, what are sort of the next steps? So we have this document, we have our priorities listed. What happens now? How does this interact with the state legislature? How does it interact with state and local government? How does it interact with philanthropy? And with that, I will turn it over to Mo, who's going to take us through our next activity, which is really about creating the charter of sort of expectations and how we are the guide for how we're going to direct our work and set the agenda over the next few months. So as a starting place, we've developed a draft version of a few of these different components as a place to start, and we'd love feedback. We're gonna use the same sort of structure as the last one, and I will go through I'll go through sort of the instructions on this as well and post the link in the chat.
Great. When you get a chance to get into the activity space, we're going to ask you to do like, change, add. So you can use the thumbs up to say what, play something that you like about the vision, values, principles, house rules, and guidelines. If there's something that you would like to change, you can click on the plus sign and change the language. And if there's something you'd like to add language to, click on the plus sign and add that language. So what we're asking you to do is to review these and give us your best comments. We'll take about 10 minutes to do that because we want to make sure that we come back and close this up in a nice bow. So about 10 minutes. And if you click on the link, you should be, that's in the chat, you should be able to join there. And we will take a look in and see how we're doing on it. And if anyone is having a challenge being able to reach the group map, we can just post that again. I know there are a few different links in there in the chat just to make sure that folks are at the group map. And thank you, Marissa, for putting it on the screen. So again, if folks could start by looking at what's listed there as the vision, and you can do the thumbs up in the bottom right-hand corner to like something, and then you can click on plus to add language or suggest a change of language.
And so we're going to start with the vision first, so let's ignore the other components for now, and we'll zoom in on the vision statement. So the vision statement is really meant to focus on sort of what we want to see tomorrow, what we want the early childhood system to become. And what we've incorporated into this statement is the working group structures. So I think you'll see some similar terminology there, that ultimately the early childhood agenda is elevating priorities that will lead to healthy beginnings and high quality experiences for young children It'll lead to financially secure families, a thriving early childhood workforce, and a robust system infrastructure and local partnerships. So as Mo mentioned, if you like this as is, feel free to use the thumbs up feature. If you want to add language, you can go ahead and click on that plus button and then add some suggested language there. And then if you want to change language that is currently written, feel free to use the plus button and then just indicate that we can make a change of language there as well. All right, so I'm seeing about, I think it's small font on my computer right now, but I think 30 something thumbs up. I'm gonna go ahead and post the, oh, there we go. We got one comment as well. Add equity. It's a great comment. And we can talk a little bit about some of the other components of this as well. So ultimately, this vision statement, the principles that we're going to discuss next, the values, house rules, and the guidelines for setting the agenda are all components that will live on the website as well. So we wanted to really bring these drafts to you all first and to get some feedback on how we're going to be collectively setting this agenda over the next few months. All right, so Jenna, you can go ahead and click on the next one, which is the principles. And if you're still working on vision, feel free to continue adding to that as we move on to the next category. So the principles are going to be a set of sort of guiding principles of our work. So what we hope to see in Massachusetts. So what we've done here is one, tried to align with an exciting new project that is going to be coming online soon called Early Childhood 101 or EC 101. And EC 101 is meant to be a sort of system descriptor for what the early childhood system in Massachusetts currently looks like. And as part of that, they've identified a set of 10 principles that we have tried to align with as closely as possible here. So in the sake of sort of consistent language and using the same terminology, that's sort of the starting place that we have here. And again, same process. So if you like it, feel free to use the thumbs up feature. If you want to add language or change language, use the plus feature. So each of these principles is completing this sentence. So across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, every young child and family should have access to, and then we've listed the 10 principles there. All right, super helpful. Seeing some answers pop up. All right, so we can go to the next one now, I think, Jenna. And again, feel free to continue working on the principles if you have some thoughts on that part as well. So this is the values section, and these are going to be the early childhood agenda's values. So what we will refer back to direct our work, to guide our work, and to give us purpose to make decisions when we come to decision and inflection points. These are sort of the consistent values that we will incorporate into all of our work at the agenda. So in terms of both defining what we mean by each of these terms and coming up with sort of what those value statements or what those words are, feel free to add comments for both. So if you have thoughts on what we should be describing as structural equity, feel free to add a comment there. If you have thoughts on sort of new terminology that we should add to this values section, feel free to use the plus button as well. Just to read through, I'll pop up my screen just to read through a few of the options there. All right, so in values right now, seeing centering families and young children, geographic equity, action-oriented, authentic engagement, utilizing the mixed delivery system, making data-driven decisions, evidence-based solutions is a component of that, leveraging our strengths as partners doing this work, thinking about structural equity, shared power, true diversity, parent choice, really prioritizing that in the agenda setting process, thinking about economic mobility and racial justice as some other values. So feel free to add comments there as well. And we haven't defined any of these yet, so we'd love thoughts on defining what each of those value statements mean as well. If we like them, then adding some descriptors as well. Professionalization, it's an interesting one as well. All right, so now we'll move to the House rules section, and this was some of the sort of rules of engagement that Mo shared at the beginning. So I'm seeing a commitment to continuous improvement, taking responsibility over impact. Great intentions can also hurt others. So making sure that we sort of get to that final stage of policy change as well. Investigating what already exists. That's a great point, and that's for sure one of our priorities for this agenda setting process, that we're not starting from scratch, that we know that there's so much good work that's already happened. And then finally, thinking about the elevating voices continuum and stepping up and stepping back. All right, and then the final category is guidelines for setting the agenda. So these are a set of questions that we want each partner to reflect on as we are prioritizing items for the agenda. So as we're making decisions, as we're thinking about what should be the topic, because we know everything is important for young children and all of the work that everyone is doing is something of value, how are we going to prioritize what item goes onto the agenda? So we've drafted a set of questions here. If there are thoughts on additional questions or changes that we should make to the language, feel free to share those as well. But for some examples, is this an actionable agenda item? Is this something that we can feasibly accomplish within the next 2 years? Is there political will around this agenda item? How large of an impact will this have on children and families? And what individual agenda items, combination of agenda items, have the largest net increase in household stability? What is the agenda item's direct relevance to early childhood? Is this something that is directly relevant or more on the periphery? Is it aligned with our vision, our principles, and our values? Is it sort of necessary change but incremental? Is it transformational? Is it something that's high value but not transformational? Sort of what's the scale that we're using to measure impact? And I'm seeing some great suggestions pop up there as well. So this, again, as Mo mentioned, is a live document. It'll stay live. We'll continue to use this over the next week or so, and we'll share this in the follow-up email to encourage some more voices to be a part of the process. But thank you all for sort of kicking us off here, and I will turn it back to Mo.
Wonderful, and please keep going if you're on that. We do have 2 things that we want to do before we close out. Just want to again thank folks for their feedback and know that these are really important comments that folks are making that are going to be taken to heart and considered. So please don't hold back. Basecamp is a tool that's going to allow us to collaborate, and so we wanted to do a little bit of level setting. I know that I'm not the most tech savvy person, and some of you may also struggle, and so we wanted to allow folks to understand the tool a little bit and get a little familiar with it today. So we'll take a few minutes to do that, and then we'll do a bit of a closing. So take it away, Jenna. Are you doing Basecamp?
Thanks, Mom. So as Mo mentioned, this is really meant to be a tool and an option for everyone. It's not a requirement. The information that lives on Basecamp will live in other places on our website and through follow-up emails. But we know that October to December is a quick timeline, and we're going to have to move fast, and we're going to have to stay organized. So we wanted to offer a resource to you all that will allow us to better do that. So everyone that participates in the working groups will have access to Basecamp. We'll go ahead and post the chat in a minute here so that you all can log in. And just wanted to run through sort of the different components of Basecamp and how we're going to be using them. So in terms of schedule, when you click on the schedule feature, which we'll go through, you'll be able to see the calendar. We have all the Zoom information plugged in there. So we know a number of people had a hard time finding Zoom today. So all of that information will always be saved on Basecamp, and you'll be able to find the Zoom information there as well. There's also a feature where you can add the early childhood agenda calendar to your calendar. So you can sort of import that. And we know that that's helpful too for planning, be able to see the meeting invitation. Because we're using the same Zoom information for every week, we weren't able to send out a calendar invitation. So for those that want to import into their calendar, that's a really helpful tool there. To-dos. So this is where we're going to post the various activities like the one we just did, and tasks that we have to do to sort of keep the agenda moving and to continue along the process. So we'll post those, we'll have due dates, and we'll make it really clear that that's sort of where we are where we're doing the activities before the next meeting, or what we need to accomplish in order to move forward at the next meeting. So our next meeting is October 25th, and later today you'll see a number of things pop up in that to-do section that we would ask partners to complete before the next meeting on October 25th. For documents and files, this is where we're going to save all resources related to the early childhood agenda. So pulling in sort of that existing work that someone mentioned in the chat earlier, the things that have already happened, the different coalitions and organizations that are a part of this, thinking about your agendas and the work that you're doing right now, pulling in all of those resources so that they're available for everyone, and that we can use those and incorporate those in the decision-making process as well. And then finally, the message board. So knowing that an hour-and-a-half meeting isn't enough time to have some of these really complex conversations, but that we do have a quick timeline. So wanting to provide a space where we can have some more intensive conversations and share and have the space and the opportunity to continue those conversations that may start during the working group meetings offline. So that is a quick preview, and thanks, Jenna, for just showing what it looks like when you log into the program. So you'll be able to see the schedule, the documents and files folder, the message board, and the to-dos section. And I will go ahead and post the link in the chat right now.
Awesome. We're not asking you to go to Basecamp at this moment, but we wanted you to have the link. So go ahead and click it and save it into your browser. I'd like to bookmark it because that way I can always find it when I need it. We've got a little bit of time for just some quick questions, reactions, anything from today, anything that you want to say. And I want to practice what we built at the beginning and ask if there's anybody who identified as a 1. Remember, these are the people who are working directly with children and families. If anybody is a 1 that either has a question or a reaction, like, how are you feeling? What are you getting from this? Where are you? So I will ask if there's a 1 who would be willing to step forward. Anyone?
I have a quick question or just an observation. I'm just kind of, I think this is an amazing thing, but I've seen a lot of amazing things come down the pike. And I go back to, in 2003, EEC sent out an initiative saying that teachers needed to have bachelor's degrees within a certain amount of time. So a lot of our programs that really care about quality really invested a lot of money and a lot of time getting our teachers to bachelor degree level. And we use the wording by saying, well, they can't ask you to get a bachelor's degree if, you know, not going to pay you. So I just want everyone to understand that, you know, we talk about birth through 8, you know, but I think it's as hard, if not harder, to teach a second grader. I mean, to teach an infant toddler room as it is a second grader. And I'm just heartened a little bit. I'm hoping that this is the answer, but I'm just like, this is my last go around. After 40 years, this is it. If we can't make change now, and like I said before, I don't feel like it's not that they don't know. I have to go with the fact that they don't care. So I don't know how to make them care.
All right. One of the wonderful things about working together is that we can come up with those answers together that we may not be able to do individually. Thank you for that. Any other ones? Any other ones that would like to step forward? Any questions or thoughts from anybody else who is doing direct work with children and families?
Hi, Mo.
Go ahead.
Hi. You know, you might have gone over this and I wasn't paying attention, but you have a lot of subcategories that might need different people from the field in different areas. Is there anybody that might be missing that we need to be reaching out to? That, you know, whether they ignored the emails and we need to just drag them in here anyways and get them on board. So just who needs an invite maybe to the table?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Diana. Really important that we broaden the invitation, and part of having the different ways of interacting is to make this more available to people who couldn't come at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning or Wednesday morning. Yeah, absolutely. And I see in the chat the idea of engaging and inviting parents and teachers into the space. Certainly when we're talking about ones, we are talking about the people who are directly working the whole day with children and families. So certainly there. Anybody else who's not a one, any other comments before we close?
We're also getting a lot of good information in chat and we appreciate it. And so we're bringing this in and keep it coming.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you all. And I just want to say just how beautiful it was to have folks today, this morning, to be a part of this conversation to kick this off. I'm going to ask Amy to say some closing words and then we'll let you go.
So, so happy, so excited. Even though we're on Zoom, we can feel the connection and the enthusiasm. I think as we have thought about our work the past 3 years, we have found such value in gathering online. We know sometimes we wish we could all be in person, but we have seen the magic of giving people time and space and building a community online. So we hope to bring that spirit to this work. And I just want to thank everybody for the thoughtful questions. We want this to be an open and inclusive experience. And so we want feedback around that. We want your good ideas. We know we know a lot of people, but we don't know everyone. So we will rely on you to say, hey, have you thought about this? What about that? I was just at a meeting and no one's talking about this. So please, you know, from the 413 to the other end of the 518 to the 978 to the 617, we are really wanting this to be a statewide, you know, comprehensive effort. So thank you for joining us today. Do you want to do the closing question?
So
if we are
if we are successful, what would that look like? And I'm just asking you to put it in like one word in the chat. If we are successful, what would that look like? And then you can go. So drop it in the chat and then go.
So what would it look like if we are successful? One word. And Diane, I really appreciate you, you know, and the spirit of we gotta get this right. There are too many people counting. I think that's why we are committed to this process of what has worked well. We have all sat at tables of coalitions, networks, alliances, and we really want to think about how to make this as good as it can be. So I don't know, Jenna, if we have any music to play us out, but we are so thrilled to have everybody with us.
Great to see you, Wendy, by the way. All right, good people. Have a great rest of your day.